To me, some of the most attractive fly patterns are those tied with a natural quill body, and this is a strip peacock quill. It just gives this beautiful segmented and natural look to the body, almost that classic catskill dry fly kind of look. But in our case, in this video, we're going to tie a nymph with it. And this is just pretty much a standard profile Euro-style nymph with a soft hackle, except for the soft hackle, we're not using partridge or other soft hackle. We're using CDC, one CDC feather. Those small fibers along each feather fiber really give this great motion under the water. Though CDC is known more for emergers and dry flies, it works exceptionally well and gives beautiful movement under the water on a nymph. So let's get started. The hook I have in the vise is a Hanak 450 BL. It's their barbless jig hook in size 14, and I am using fluorescent fire orange ultra thread in 70 denier. And on the hook I have a 7/64 of an inch slotted tungsten bead, and I get my thread started just behind the bead and then snip off the excess. Now, to stabilize the bead, I'm not using lead here, so I'm going to take a few wraps right behind the bead and just to kind of get it stabilized on the hook shaft. All right, then move my thread just a bit back from that thread dam and let it hang there. And for the tail of the fly, I'm going to use natural pheasant. And pheasant tail, this is a piece of pheasant tail, and to keep the tips aligned, I get 8 or 10, 7 or 8, it doesn't matter, I don't count, get them perpendicular to the shaft of the feather and just pull them straight off, and they will be relatively aligned. Now for the tail, I want it to be roughly a hook gap in length behind the hook, so that looks about right. And so I will give it just a few turns of thread there and then check my length. That looks a little bit long, so I'll just pull that in just a bit more. And then I'll hold that feather up and toward me. Holding it toward me helps keep it on top of the hook shank, and holding it up helps the thread lie next to each thread wrap lie next to each other as I go down the thread wraps. And I leave my thread hanging about where the hook barb would be if this was a barbed hook. And then I just reach in and cut off the excess there. Now I want to create a slight taper for the body, so I use a counterclockwise twist looking down on my thread to flatten it out a bit, and then move my thread forward to behind the bead, and then back down the body, stopping again to give it another counterclockwise twist. And you'll see that you've given it enough twist whenever it starts to flatten out. There we go. And I'm going to go all the way almost to the base of my thread wraps and let the thread hang there. Now the body is of course peacock quill, strip peacock quill, and this is one in brown. And you'll notice that one edge of it is slightly darker than the other edge, and the upper edge is slightly darker, and I want that edge to be toward the rear of my hook, so when I wrap it, those dark edges will be exposed, giving it that great segmented look. So again, give my thread another counterclockwise twist and take a couple of thread wraps just to secure that tip in, and I carefully secure it all the way back to my last thread wrap. And then I take that thread forward to behind the bead and give it another counterclockwise twist just to keep things flat. Now to wrap this, I could use the rotary function on my vise, but I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm just going to get it secured in some hackle pliers and wrap it by hand. And take your time doing this. Take that first wrap right over the base of your thread wraps. Now, this bright orange thread is going to show any wrapping mistake that I might make. You could certainly change thread colors and put brown in the back, but then your mistakes wouldn't show as much, but then you'd have to change thread colors. So I'm not going to do that. Now when I get to the front, if I need just a couple of more wraps, I can move my hackle pliers down just a bit, and hopefully they won't slip on me, and take that last wrap and then get the thread under that hackle plier, which is behind that quill, and I can remove my hackle pliers and take a couple wraps of thread in front. And then I reach in and trim off that little tag end of quill. Now at this point, for durability, you would want to cover these quill wraps with either a UV resin or your choice of head cement. But I'm not going to do that in the video just to save a bit of time here. I'm just going to go ahead and continue on. But this is the point, you would want to do that before you put any more materials on. Now for the thorax on this fly, I'm using just brown rabbit dubbing. You can of course choose any dubbing you like. If you'd like a little bit more flash, use something with a bit more flash. But really for this copy, the only flash I want are the bright spot, is that hot spot in the front. So I'll make a slim dubbing noodle, probably just over an inch long. And we will wrap that right behind the bead and create a thorax about the same size as the bead. And we can reach in and trim out any of those stray hairs we want, like so. And that's probably fine. Now this could easily be fished just as it is. I could whip finish and we would be ready to go. But I'm going to add a CDC collar, hackle collar to this. And CDC, though it's thought of primarily as a dry fly material, it works really well with nymphs because the fibers in the feather have the little barbules on them, and they really create a lot of movement. So I create a little tie-in point just like I would with a normal soft hackle, and I like to pull that back just a bit just to clamp down those last few thread wraps to tie it down, then take a few thread wraps in front, and then reach in and trim off the tag end. Try to get it fairly close. There we go. And I'll take my hackle pliers, and we only want about 3 wraps of this. If you like a really leggy fly, 4 wraps, but 3 seems to be about right. So I'm going to hold this up with my hackle pliers and then sweep those fibers back. Just kind of squeeze them with my hand as I take each wrap, and just take my thumb and forefinger, make sure those are all swept back and we don't trap many fibers. Okay, there's 2 wraps, and we'll get 1 more out of this. And there's 3. And then I'm going to loop my thread over that head a couple of times, and I can take my hackle pliers off, cinch down, take another wrap, and then a couple of wraps in front. And then take my scissors and trim off the butt end of that feather. And then I like to hold these back and create the feather fibers back and create a little hot spot in the front with a few wraps of that bright orange thread. And then we'll just give it a whip finish, 4 or 5 turn whip finish. And again, reach in and trim off that thread. Now, some of these fibers are a little long, so I'll just nice thing about CDC is you can just reach in and pluck those with your thumbnail and shorten all those up. But these are generally, this collar is generally longer than you would for, say, a partridge soft hackle. But there we have it. That is a quill-bodied CDC nymph. Now, of course, you would want to add head cement to that, your choice of head cement or super glue or epoxy, whatever you prefer. But a really, really attractive pattern and one that's very, very effective. So I hope you'll give it a try.